Our customers are changing. We've heard that today from a number of different speakers. Let's think about those trends and what it might mean for New Zealand's agribusiness. Flexitarian diet. This is about consumers wanting the ability to match their food to their lifestyle. They want to choose plant-based foods and they want to choose plant-sourced proteins. They have a much greater environmental focus, and really that's why we're worried about the environment now. It's our consumers and our markets, and it's time to get it sorted. Consumers are making purchase decisions linked to their perception of the food footprint, linked to their perception of the environmental impact of the food, of the sustainability of that food, and of the future food security. There's also a drive for personalised foods. Thank you, millenniums, and whatever the next couple of generations of kids are called these days. Mine are some. Foods that fit their nutritional and health drivers. And our consumers come from culturally distinct export markets. They've got very different beliefs when it comes to nutrition and health. So today we've heard a lot about how sustainability is an issue for the meat industry. We need to think about new ways to expand our market.
How do you make peas taste like chicken?
The proteins are aligned in a certain way that give it that delicious texture, that bite we like.
Introducing Impossible Burger. It's meat made entirely from plants that can be cooked up in all sorts of ways. It's nature and science working together.
It's pretty damn awesome food innovation, people. But Impossible Burger, Beyond Beef, Sun-Fed Chicken, they're all held up as examples here for the New Zealand industry, and what do they have in common? They're trying to be meat. We need to diversify, but is this really the key and the best way forward for New Zealand? What might a diversified shift in high-protein foods look like for New Zealand? We've got many options in the primary system, and we've heard about some of those today. And today I want to look beyond meat and dairy replacements to a more nuanced view of the future. We hear a lot about how Eastern cultures want to become more westernised, but perhaps we need to think about that the other way round. What if we took some lessons from the East and we applied them to the West? Last year, Plant and Food and MPI partnered up and we went to China and we asked 2,000 Chinese consumers what their perception of high-protein foods was. Plant-based protein foods, tofu and bean curd, they've been meal components in China for over 2,000 years. There's a strongly established eating culture whereby plant and animal-based dishes are the basic elements of any meal, and they're complementary, they don't substitute for each other. As a consequence, while you might get vegan dishes, you don't get a high proportion of Chinese who are vegetarian and vegan. It's very rare in that culture. China consumes less meat overall than more developed countries, and we've heard that earlier. Yet it's one of the highest it has one of the highest consumption rates of pork. Well, let's face it, who likes waking up to bacon butties in the morning? Pork just tastes delicious. The pork consumption has declined over the last 3 years, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later as well. Chinese consumers obtain 60% of their daily protein from plant sources. The average of Western consumers is 40% of your daily intake of protein is coming from a plant source. So let's change the record. This is not about alternatives and synthetics. This is about future foods, and plants play a really important part of that diet into the future of our new consumers. So it's not all about protein. The Chinese have a more sophisticated dietary approach, and let me give you some examples of the thinking behind the protein food choice in China. So seafood dominates the Chinese view. It's perceived as a healthy meat protein. And it brings flavour and texture to the meal. So they're thinking beyond protein. Pork is seen as a good source of protein, but it has the negative attributes of calories, saturated fat and cholesterol, hence the decline in pork consumption over the last 3 years. But if you talk to any of the Chinese people that we talk to in the focus group, they still absolutely love it, and they know when they're being a little bit naughty, but they're still going to eat it in moderation. Bean, curd and legumes, we're talking about plant-based proteins, high protein foods, and they have positive health credentials, but they don't taste good, people. And that's something that we could really get around. There's an intention in the Chinese consumers that we surveyed to eat more vegetables and fruit. They provide the greatest source of minerals and vitamins. They're recognised as healthy, but they're also recognised as not being high in protein. So these guys really know their food and their food consumption and the composition of that. And if you talk to the Chinese about when they go out to eat, one of the meat choices that's preferred is beef, and it's preferred because it's recognised as a premium quality. It's perceived to be a premium quality, and that's what they want when they're eating out. So it's not all about protein. Goodness me, and we're at a ProteinTECH meeting. Perhaps somebody should have told me what the title was meant to be about. The Chinese recognise the contribution of individual food types to a meal, and they want flavour and they want health. But if we talk about protein, we're only talking about half the issue. What we're talking about here is food, and we need to recognise the human element. It's not enough to be healthy. The food also has to taste good, it has to feel good, it has to smell good. You need to get the whole experience. We eat food, people. We eat diets. We don't eat protein. Now, the consumer of the future, and Roger Harker is probably going to kill me for this, but you have to ask. Roger Harker is a consumer science expert at Plant and Food, and I asked him who the consumer of the future was. Roger was part of the team that went over to China to ask the Chinese their view of protein. And this is what he said. He believes that the consumers will adopt plant protein, but in an authentic way that allows it to be recognised as a plant protein rather than a mock meat. He thinks there's an opportunity for food science to create and modify plant protein to deliver greater diversity of texture, taste and flavour, the things that are limiting it at the moment. There's also an opportunity for our nutritional scientists to create and modify protein-based foods in a way that provides better overall nutrition. And of course, he always has a plug to say you have to do more consumer science, people. So it's all about choice, and it's all about our consumers' choice. Let's face it, some people want real meat. We all want a steak on the barbecue with a bit of charcoal around the edge. It's just delicious, and it can even bleed for me. But mock meat, sorry, I don't like my patties bleeding in the middle. Some people do, so some people are after mock meat. But there's a growing group of people who want something else, people who want healthy, nutritious meals that are made from plants. And New Zealand can do all of these if we put our mind to it. So what does it look like for a more nuanced, sophisticated approach to food in New Zealand? What steps might we take towards this new horizon? Let's talk about the science of how we get there. New Zealand is simply not a commodity market space. We've heard this already today. So producing plant-based ingredients in bulk is really not where we should go. We're good at producing premium meats, we're good at producing premium dairy products, and we're good at producing premium fruits. So let's take that approach and harness it for plant foods as well. We need a system that maximises the opportunity to feed people with value-added foods while maintaining the environment, and we can include growing plants for protein in that mix. This means a change to our national landscape. All of these plants are crops that have been or could be grown in New Zealand, and they could be used as potential sources of protein for human consumption. The key is how we extract the value from these plants. We need to consider the whole value chain associated with manufacturing high-value foods. Both the market and the consumers have preferences that influence each part of this chain. And the consumers really care. So they care about our genetics. They care whether they're genetically modified. They care about the production systems and the environmental footprint. They care how processed their foods are. They care about waste. They also care about having really new, innovative foods that fit their lifestyle, and they care about how they get them. So we really do have to be quite mindful of every part of this chain. And I think it's safe to say that in New Zealand, We're not well linked up when it comes to plant-based foods, and we have very few vertically integrated production systems. Part of our competitive advantage will be optimising each part of this chain for our future foods. I'm a plant biologist. I understand about genetics and producing new plants, so this is the exciting bit for me, people. We can optimise the genetics to improve nutritional quality of our plants. Plants contain protein, yes, but that's only a third of what they contain. They contain starch and fibre and vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals, and all those things are key for human nutrition and health. And we can optimise the genetics to improve those. We can also optimise the genetics to improve the plant form. And I know we've talked about producing plants, growing plants in our current agricultural environments, but what if we changed that up a little bit and increased the yield, didn't use as much land? Vertical farming was introduced earlier today, but there are other systems that we could actually start to develop to produce our plants and not use the big footprint. We could increase the harvest index, the production system, and we could utilise 100% of the plant so that there is no waste. We can also optimise our genetics so that the plants that we're producing fit our climate, both our natural climate and perhaps some climates that we might produce by covering our crops. So we can breed for future growing systems, not necessarily we can breed for the current growing systems, we do that already, but let's think about future growing systems. And we can own the rights to those plants, which means anyone who wants to copy us has to pay. So you've got a competitive advantage. Let's get the genetics right. From our consumer insight work, we know that credentials and assurances that signal authenticity and food safety are strong purchase motivators. A new understanding on sustainability plus the value to consumers of plant-based foods will allow us to better understand how we might position our products to capture an eco-premium. But to achieve this, we need more data. We need data that verifies the production footprints of our crops: water, carbon, nitrogen, greenhouse gas, biodiversity footprints. We don't have enough data on this, and we don't have the right depth of data. We need data that allows us to address the complex trade-offs, the biophysical, economic, social benefits of our food production. Technology innovations and new production systems that allow farming within the impacts of climate change will ensure New Zealand's primary production is environmentally sustainable into the future. New Zealand's food industry, together with the established research partners, can contribute expertise to the development of new foods, the new hero plant foods for our discerning export customers. So we have food composition, we have awesome food scientists and food engineers. We can apply novel chemistry to deliver protein food structures from proteins that come out of plants. We can do sensory science. So we have the expertise in New Zealand to be able to do this. However, my experience is that there's a gap in New Zealand's manufacturing infrastructure. So we have the kit that we need available around New Zealand. Sometimes we can't access it, or sometimes it's in the wrong place. And what new technical innovations are needed? How about optimising manufacturing for New Zealand for our new crop plants that we're going to be producing? The government's funded a program to look at just that. So get alongside Massey University and see what they're doing and bringing to the place. All of the research providers are partners to that government-funded program, and we're looking at optimising manufacturing equipment for New Zealand source raw materials. There are opportunities through those process improvements to develop a competitive position. How might we work together to produce a more diverse, high-protein food in New Zealand? We need to change our mindset from protein to whole bioresource and consider how we might utilise it all. When it comes to plants, there's more than just protein in them, and we don't want to produce a whole lot of waste. Total utilisation is the generally accepted international model for ingredient manufacture profitability. So let's think about peas. You can extract protein from garden peas, green, wrinkly garden peas, but that extraction might result in gluten-free food starch. It might result in insoluble fibre as a prebiotic food ingredient or a biomaterial for reinforcing bioplastics. You've got a lot of different raw material streams that are coming from one pea. You have to design for those different streams. It's highly likely that the gluten-free starch of green pea is the premium product and everything else is a byproduct you can make some money out of on the side. But it means you've got to know what you're doing when it comes to food. There are some challenges if we focus just on protein when it comes to plants. And Simon discussed, he told you the history behind protein, what it is, the essential amino acids. If we simply focus on protein, a lot of plant-based proteins don't have a complete set of essential amino acids. But we don't eat proteins, we eat foods and we eat diets. And in countries where they do vegetarian foods, and in India in particular, you can have big curries of protein-based foods that have got all the essential amino acids in them because they source the plant-based proteins from different plants. There's also anti-nutritional factors, Simon talked about that, allergens, and the taste consideration is a big one. We really have to get that right. Although maybe we don't have to get it right. Maybe we just don't have to get plant-based protein to taste like milk. Let's get plant-based protein to taste like plants, and then we don't have to worry about the so-called off flavours. We know from our Chinese insight work that actually they don't mind trying different things. Goodness me, they've eaten tofu for 2,000 years. There must be something better than tofu out there. So the big question that I've got, and my food scientists don't agree, but hey, you guys might agree. How can we produce plant-based foods without stripping out the beneficial nutrients, without taking out the vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals? Is there another way that we can produce the final food and still have it nutritionally healthy? Because we haven't just extracted protein to then put back into a new food. New Zealand is an innovative exporting economy. We need to think consumers first and build on our existing channels to market and establish some new ones that meet the end users' needs. We're good at branded consumer goods. We've got some excellent examples out there and we just need to lift that up for everything else. We need to become more vertically integrated, particularly if we're going to be focused on future plant-based foods. And we need some much better cooperation and collaborative models. We're really small on a global scale. We're reaching for the premium consumers, those who've got lots of money, who've got lots of disposable income and want to spend it on our foods. But we need to be innovative in our business approaches too, and we really did hear that in the first talk today. So what's the best business approach to be able to support this new food? So achieving a diversified high-protein food sector in New Zealand, it's going to require us to overcome some hurdles. We're going to need new plant resources, but we can optimise those for the New Zealand economy. How about new production systems? How about rotating our cropping systems that include animals and plants in such a way that the soil health and environmental impact is minimised? We don't have just plants or animals. We can cycle through both of them. We need to invest in our infrastructure, we need to optimise that for our products. And we need a waste not mindset. We need to think about how we might use the whole resource and maximise the profit. It's not just about the protein. An agri-food system that would see all parts of the food industry cooperate and maximise the benefit to New Zealand, not just part of it. So more cooperation. But ultimately it is all about consumer choice.
Introducing Wendy's new black bean burger.
Wendy's burger without any meat? I don't get it.
Okay, black bean sandwich?
It's more than just a sandwich with this corn, roasted red pepper, and black bean patty.
Black bean more than just a sandwich with a corn, roasted red pepper, and black
Which
bean.
is perfect if you don't eat meat.
That's perfect if you don't eat meat.
Or if you just don't feel like eating meat today.
or if you just don't feel like meat today.
Sorry to bother. Does this require fanciful cutlery?
That you eat with both hands.
What about protein?
Yeah, what about protein?
That's a good source of protein.
Perdón, ¿lo puedes decir en español?
Sí, el nuevo sándwich de frijol negro de Wendy's con my... Available at the pickup window.
What if I came galloping?
Even if you came in galloping.
Is this from Hamburg?
No,
Germany, like me?
it's not that kind of hamburger. Yes, sandwich.
Yeah, Hamburg. And I'm from Hamburg. We are from Hamburg. Tutu from Hamburg. Ha, ha.
Sorry, I'm a bit lost.
Oh, me too. Let's recap. New black bean, more than just a sandwich with a corn, roasted red pepper, and black bean patty. Perfect if you like don't eat meat, or if you just don't feel like meat today, that you eat with both hands. It's a good source of protein. You can order in Spanish and or English. Available at the pickup window, even if you come in galloping.
Yay, it's my turn.
On a hearty, multi-grain bun.
Wait. You're right. This is definitely a burger.
Yes, it's definitely a Wendy's burger.
Thank you, everybody. I hope I've given you something to think about.